I just love that beat. Good day, everyone. Hey, does anything feel strange to you today?
It feels right.
Because
I always knew I was to your right, and now I am.
Yes. You know, you are so far right that you are sometimes left.
I made up that joke all by myself.
I know you did, yeah. You are sometimes so far right, you're left. But anyway, that's what I like. I used to say that on Pat's show all the time, that so many of our right-wing friends have gone so far right that they actually end up left. So, hey, I've got to drop this bomb on you.
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard. My former opponent from last year.
Yeah.
Will you say the name?
Lori Decker Wright, the San Francisco liberal.
Right. Have you heard the news?
No.
That she's a Republican now?
Oh, really?
You haven't heard?
Oh, really? But John Erling was a Republican too, you know?
Right. But this is new. She is just recently changed parties.
We need to have her in on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right there. You're right there with me. We need to vet the new Republic.
Sure. Hey, you're a constituent.
That's right.
And we're in her district.
Exactly.
Broadcasting to the world.
Everything fits. She must come.
Yeah.
She must answer.
The funny thing is,
she must be vetted.
One of the most woke leftist liberals I know, Lori Phillips, worked her campaign. And I wonder how she feels.
Oh, I see. She worked. Okay, now I got you.
Yeah, she was a legal advisor, best my understanding. Lori, if that's not true, fine, clarify it. I will stand corrected.
I've dealt with her on, in her assaults. Yeah. I have felt her wrath.
Yeah,
but no, yeah. This was some of the news this week.
That is big news, Eddie.
Yes. I dropped that bomb here right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we will see how that all pans out. I mean, there's a lot of things, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Okay, here's my first impression. Okay, I have to say, to me, this is the equivalent. Well, it's not quite the same because what was our superintendent of education that decided to run for
Joy Hoffmeister.
Joy Hoffmeister.
Exactly.
See, Joy Hoffmeister switched to Democrat, but we knew she was a Democrat all along. Exactly. Okay, so
sadly, I wish I'd found out a little earlier than 2014 when I first voted for her, because Fount Holland ran her campaign, convinced us all that Janet Barresi was horrible. We needed a real Republican.
See, I tried to sound that warning way back.
Yeah, I admit, Eddie, you weren't snowed like I was.
Right. I mean, I knew it, and I tried to attack her in the studio back at KFAQ when we had her in. It was not a pleasant experience. Yeah. But because I knew right from the beginning, I knew the people behind her and all of that. So I had a little bit of inside info. But this seems like it's almost the opposite. It's almost like she's doing the Hoffmeister in reverse. She's trying to snow the people on the other side. Now, if Lori Decker Wright truly has seen the light and wants to be a true Republican, my hat's off to her. I welcome her to the party. Let me be the first to say, welcome, Lori. And we both welcome you, and we welcome you to come have a seat at the table. Yeah. It is a literal table with us, and discuss it and tell us what led you to this, because the city needs some kind of help. It needs to be saved from where it is headed. The city is headed to ruin, really, from including some of the things that are going on right now. So anyway,
Eddie,
that's where we are.
Let me just say this, and I think you'll agree with this, Lori. We invite you seriously and we'll enter a conversation with an open mind.
Yeah.
We really will. Because Eddie, you and I both know we've both been approached to run for office, and up until last year, you've been able to find somebody else willing to do it that you could get behind, because in reality, you aren't trying to be a career politician.
As I always said, I'm actually running from office all the time, because I really do not feel a calling to run.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel I came a bit close, but I put it before the Lord, said, if you want me to do this, you want me to win, I'll win. If not, hey, fine. But I actually did it more for some other people than myself. And so it didn't happen, and Lori won. And if Lori, as the new representative, maybe she can turn the city back around. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see. I don't know. But I do have to be honest and say that I don't believe it right now. I mean, honestly, my gut tells me that there's some shenanigans here. My gut tells me she is wanting to run for another office, either that or because each time we've come closer, I've come closer than the guys who ran against her the last time. So this next time she wants to run as a Republican so that can be cut off as, ammunition against her.
You know what? So, I look at the whole musical chairs of politics, of another campaign season's coming up, which office you're going to try to step into next.
Right.
This could be a precursor to her running for mayor.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's true. She could be, or for state office. So, but you're right. She could be trying to set herself up as mayor. That's true.
Yeah.
So, but that's why it's important for us to know your people, for a party to know who's running. We just went through this with the head of the Republican Party.
Melissa is now Melissa Myers. And this is Melissa. This is an opportunity for you to open a dialogue with her as well. And I think it'll be important, because to the activists, it's not about the labels, the R's and the D's.
Right.
Because, back in the 90s, when we switched from city commission to a city council government, Darla Hall was a Democrat, very conservative. More conservative than a lot of Republicans. In fact, our friend Larry Williamson got kicked off the executive committee for the county because he stood by Darla Hall against our friend Chris Medlock.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one that got kicked off.
No, you weren't.
Supporting a Democrat.
You and Larry. And the funny thing is, though, when Medlock, he did get elected, despite Larry's efforts, Medlock built a coalition of conservatives that controlled the city council for a while, including a couple of black Democrats from North Tulsa, Jack Henderson and forget the other guy's name. But, it's fantastic. And
Roscoe.
Roscoe Turner and Jim Martino and then Sam Roop. And those five control, and the chamber had hissy fits about it. In fact, they actually had a recall petition and a vote. Should we kick them out of office? And both Martino and Medlock, they both survived that.
Right.
And that's when Medlock was part of your KFAQ alumni, his radio show started with the roll call of the Chamber of Commerce. And when they called his name the next day, he said, "Still here." So,
yeah. So, because, to be honest, the Republicans on the city council right now are not the most radically Republican members of the party themselves.
Right.
And so, in fact, a couple of them are very questionable. And so, right now, I would say we have the most left-leaning, radically liberal city council that the city has ever had, led by a radical mayor.
Yeah.
And in fact, sadly, our mayor is turning out to be not the soft-spoken,
conciliatory.
Yes,
he's not.
Well, particularly, this is an issue that I was trying to head off at the pass, cut off at the knees, whatever you want to use. The deal on reparations, okay? Something that I have been fighting against pretty much since I've been here. I came in 92, we moved here, and probably since about 94 or 96, I became aware of this reparations movement, the local version.
Yeah.
It's been going on in America for some time, even probably longer, but it started really ginning up in Tulsa in the mid-90s there. And I've been fighting it since then, and it's more alive than ever. And the new mayor is put out just the most obvious signal that they're going after it full on. I mean, full on. They're going after reparations for the city. And they don't understand that once we do it in the city, they will use that nationally to get national reparations.
Well, I think
this is what this is what the white folks, as a friend of mine used to say, you wheat folks don't understand.
As Germans.
Yeah, you Deutsch.
He's more German than I am.
That's the sad thing about it. Yeah. Don't tell me about it, because then I'll be considered one. I'm a spy.
Then you can't use the N-word.
I'm incognito. No, seriously though, people don't understand. I've been battling on Facebook on Channel 6, on Channel 6's Facebook page, with these people, and you get these liberals on there that are so ignorant, either ignorant or just stupid, either that or suicidal. I don't know what it is. Masochistic. I mean, you can put many names to it, but they're just begging for these reparations. And I don't think they realize what they're doing to themselves and their children and grandchildren, and perpetually.
Well, Obama would have to logically pay reparations.
Twice.
Oh?
Yeah, both sides. His father's people sold us, and his mother's people bought us.
Well, yeah, on a global sense, you're right. But I'm saying in law, based in the United States, his mother's white. Right. Yeah, from Kansas.
Right. So she has admitted her people bought slaves. They owned slaves.
Yeah.
And his father's people were African. So, I mean, first generation African, his dad. So they sold us.
Yeah.
So he's got to pay twice.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. He's got to give up. And then, so what's he going to tell Michelle?
Right. But these narratives we're hearing out of North Tulsa in this race reparations committee and that, it just simplifies it down to, if you're black, you get reparations.
Well, that's a different animal.
Yeah.
The Tulsa reparations are totally based on the 1921 riot.
Right.
Which they want to call a massacre. I still call it a riot because it broke out as a riot and then turned into this mess.
Yeah.
And depending on who you listen to, how it started, apparently, I don't want to go through the whole history, but it's not everything. They've tried to change the story several times. And, I have my version that in doing my research, how I believe it started.
Yeah.
The sheriff's department did what they could and were supposed to do.
I think so.
And in fact, the funniest thing that nobody wants to talk about or hear is that the couple that it all started, there was a white girl and a black elevator operator.
No,
she was the elevator operator.
He just needed to find a place to pee.
Right. And he apparently, the elevator doors opened and he says he tripped and fell upon her, or they thought that they might have been having a relationship. And back in those days, that wasn't allowed.
It was some woman when the door opened from a distance saw it, and she just made up the narrative. Some clerk. Yeah.
Well, and so anyway, he was arrested for attacking this white girl. I'm going farther than I should. But anyway, what I wanted to say is the word got out that they were supposed to be coming to lynch him. But that couple, the sheriff escorted them out of town with security, safely out of town before anything could happen.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened to them. Meanwhile, North Tulsa's burning.
Yeah.
Because these people from North Tulsa came, former veterans with guns.
Yeah.
And then the Ku Klux Klanners heard niggers are coming with guns. So they had a face-off. Someone fired the first shot. Boom.
Right.
It took off. So you cannot, and now we are being held hostage as a city.
Yeah.
Which at least 50% probably or more of the residents of Tulsa were never here, had nothing to do with it. And we're supposed to pay somebody for something that happened back then.
Yeah. According to the narratives I've read from multiple sources, probably the most purely guilty party in it was the clerk that I think on the third floor when the elevator door opened and she saw this guy, because evidently the elevators those days were not nearly as nice they are now. And the jerking that, and, he loses balance into her. And this clerk looking from a distance, maybe hearing a hey or something like that, somebody made up the narrative and spread the story. Words can kill people, can incite a riot. I'm thinking she might be the most guilty party. I don't know that she ever packed a gun. Yeah,
I probably think there was a little more to it. I think there was a romantic relationship between this couple.
I doubt it.
Well,
but I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well,
make your point.
You do that often, but anyway, the reason I say that is because if there weren't a relationship, there would have been no need to send both of them out of town, and because the sheriff sent them both out of town, it gives me the clue that they had a relationship going. If it had been the other way around, then he might have sent the guy out of town and she could have gone on with her life. But other than that,
I think it was smart for her to not be in town. I think it's smart for her because some of the black folk could have taken out their rage at her for spreading this narrative.
That wouldn't have happened because then that would have set things.
I know, but you're the sheriff. What's the safer thing? I'm thinking the safer thing is might be time to go visit your aunt over in Coweta.
Well, the problem is he didn't send them to Coweta.
Well, I don't know. I just threw that as a narrative.
Yeah. I have a feeling they ended up in some place like Chicago or Detroit.
No, we went by train in those days.
And the train didn't go to Chicago?
Well,
the train went to Coweta.
How far do you need to travel until you've mitigated the concern? And I don't think it's more than 20, 30 miles.
I have a feeling they went a lot farther. In fact, I'll be honest.
Okay.
I have a suspicion they probably ended up in some place like California.
But I don't think, first of all, the narratives I read is this kid's downtown doing some errands or whatever. He needs to find a colored restroom.
A colored restroom?
Yes. Yes.
You mean a black restroom?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying more often they just say for colored
Well,
people.
in those days, yeah.
But the colored one is up on the third floor or some floor. It wasn't on street level. That's the narrative I read. That's why he's going there.
Okay.
And yes, they would hire, back in those days, elevators weren't automated. You had to have an operator.
Oh, no, she was an elevator. Yeah,
right.
That's a gimme. We're relitigating the entire case.
But I'm not saying there wasn't a relationship. I'd say it would be odd because they hired pretty young things to run those. Okay. They just did. Okay. Especially the upscale department stores.
Right.
I think the narrative is pretty rare of that. And evidently they did not refuse service of the elevator to black folks.
Right. And he might have been a strapping young man.
Could have been.
That caught her eye. Yeah. I mean, listen, we could go all day on it, all kinds of ways. But I personally believe that there was something going on between them. And I believe that's why the sheriff ushered him out of town, said, y'all be gone, and tried, and that's how he dealt with it and calmed it down and that's why it all became quiet. Because if it had been a situation of assault, regardless if they're here or not, it probably, the incident, it did flare up anyway, and it ended up in, hundreds of people died.
That's one of those details that is probably, I'm thinking her parents took her out of town. I mean,
who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know. I just know they both ended up.
And I think for him, you probably send a deputy to take him, or maybe a retired one. Yeah. Hey, this is a great opportunity for a segue on the homeless problem.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you, how did we get here from Lori Dector, right? Becoming a Republican?
Well, it's the whole race to right narrative and wanting reparations.
Right. And Monroe and reparations.
But I was talking to my homeless buddy who's now in California. And we've all been disgusted at the narratives of people crapping on the streets in LA and other cities. So I was in 2 summers ago, I was in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. My son took me there for just a week, and he had to be at his office down there for a week. I got to just roam the city. So I went up the subway to Central Park, Trump Towers, Fifth Avenue, seen all this.
Manhattan,
yeah, all along Manhattan. I stayed there. I didn't go in the boroughs, but couldn't find a bathroom. Hardest thing to find in New York is a public restroom in that area. The only place I could find was a Starbucks. The same Starbucks where the kid shot the healthcare executive. Mm-hmm. He, afterwards went over, used the bathroom at Starbucks. It's right there by Trump Tower. And when I went there, there's a line. And it just dawns on me. A lot of these businesses and communities, if they aren't going to have public restrooms, and the businesses don't want the riffraff using theirs,
right.
You're going to have people crapping in the streets. Mm-hmm. As long as you got, homeless people or people there who are patronizing the businesses or working at the businesses. Yeah.
That's why in Europe, they have the outdoor bathrooms, mm-hmm. and they have pisseurs, mm-hmm. or we call them pissers, mm-hmm. here in America.
I don't. To me, that's still language my mother wouldn't allow me to use.
Yeah, but it's a French word. Yeah, for urinal. I mean, it's just a French word for, for urinal.
You hear that, Mom?
Yeah.
See, I wasn't sinning a lot.
Yeah, it's the French word for urinal.
Yeah.
But what's weird is, like these things, they leave it to them. You go up these little steps, like a little round thing, and then it starts at the knees and it stops here. So you're looking around.
Everybody knows where your hands are.
Well, yeah. I mean, it only covers from the knees to the chest.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they have them all over. Now, I don't know what they do for the women, to be honest with you, but they have these things, mm-hmm. urinals in English, all over town. So guys are taken care of. I don't know what the poor ladies have to do.
Yeah.
I guess they can go inside. I guess they have restrooms for women,
right?
But they don't have them for men. You can't just. But men, they're all over the town.
Yeah.
But every town has these outdoor in Amsterdam, Paris, all the big tourist spots have these things, and they all call them the same thing, by the way. So, I mean, honestly, that's probably what they should do. We don't have them here because we're so sophisticated and
well, that's socialism. That's why. That's government.
That's why they have that over there.
Yeah. See, they're socialists. So the government provides the hole to pee in. We believe private enterprise should provide that.
Yeah.
But see, we're seeing the problem with it. You've got to,
Wait, but see, here's the other thing here's the problem you have with the private ones, or having like some place, like in New York, you might, if you do find one, it's usually at the train stations or bus stations. But then what you have the drug addicts go in there. And in Amsterdam, for example, what they would do, they'll go into and this is why you have a problem with like Starbucks or these places. They'll go in the toilets and they'll shoot up. They'll sit there and use those. But so what they start doing in Amsterdam, apparently they will they put black lights in there because the black light you can't find a vein.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, they tried to do everything, all kinds of things to prevent these people from being able to do this stuff. But it's I don't know, the whole man, we're segueing into all kinds of
right.
stuff.
But my point with my homeless buddy was trying to say is, you really think I like squatting at the curb? Yeah, I'd much rather have toilet paper available.
Yeah.
So it's when you're looking for, I mean, when you got a bunch of conservative grandmas all discuss, humanity, just what's wrong with those animals?
I have a better suggestion. How about getting a job to where you can, use a regular bathroom and you will have toilet paper?
Yes.
I mean, see, that's the thing. And that's why I don't have the pity that many people have on these people, because I think if you get hard and fast rules and bring the law down on them and hard, fast rules, then you can separate the truly sick, those that truly need the help, and it shrinks it down to a few that can then be helped by your social services.
Right.
And I believe at that point, the true social services that should be helping should be private social services, not public social services. So you would have we've talked about this many times during the campaign. This was my thing. Salvation Army, John 3:16, you name them. Okay?
Yeah, they do it much better than a government. They do a much better
job. Yeah. But as long as the government is involved, as long as we're taking pity on Indian, I don't know if I ever told you the story. I used to mentor this young man. He's grown now. He's a dad. He's got a little baby, a son of his own. I met him when he was like 8 years old. No, he might have been younger than that. I don't think he was 8. I think he was like 7. Most fantastic little soccer prodigy I've ever seen.
Sure, I think I remember the story.
Yeah, in North Tulsa. And so I kind of took him under my wing, and I used to take care of him. And I introduced him, got him into a team up here in South Tulsa. And I mean, kid was great. But anyway, so I remember going to his house one time, and we went in. It was after practice. I dropped him off, or after a game or something. And we had just gotten in the house, and all of a sudden somebody comes knocking on. Hey, y'all, they're giving away food up the street, up at the community center. And I mean, it was like instantly everybody dropped anything and dashed out of the door. And so here I am all of a sudden standing alone. I mean, nobody's locked up anything, nothing. They just dropped.
Yep.
They're gone. So I went to the front door and looked out. The entire street, it was like a zombie movie.
Wow.
People streaming.
Or an Ozempic commercial, where they're all.
Oh, yeah. Ozempic, yeah. Yeah. Only instead.
Well, people can picture that.
Yeah. Instead of dancing, they're just all running down the street.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, people just, flowing out of houses, streaming out of houses and up the street. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so people are just running up the street and then around the corner, and then they ended up around the corner and gone. And all of a sudden it was quiet for about 30 minutes, an hour. And then about 30 minutes to an hour later, you start seeing people coming back, and they're carrying all of these bags and, full of all kinds of stuff, groceries, food, and they're humming and singing and walking back, and they're going. And I'm just shaking my head. I said, wow, what is that? Where'd you get that from? Who's doing that? I don't know. We don't know. And it was just the weirdest thing that they had no clue who was doing it, and they didn't care. And to me, I was thinking, whoever was doing it, well, I know it was Victory Christian Center who was doing it. I found out. I took the time to do it.
Oh, yeah. I drive by there quite often, up on 46.
Well, no. They just had two trucks show up at the community center.
Okay.
And so I went up there to the truck and said, who are you guys with? And then they told me.
Yeah.
But you would think that they should have maybe had some kind of outreach or somebody tell the people to let them know, we'd like you to come, if you want some spiritual help or anything.
Yeah.
But what it did to me, all they were doing is just fostering.
Yeah, it's a very Band-Aid, temporary fix. But it was a fix.
Well, yeah, but it fosters a kind of a greed. It fosters a thoughtlessness.
Yeah.
In other words, no gratitude, ingratitude. That's the word I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, because it's not charity. It's an entitlement. When the government does it.
This wasn't even a government, but it especially when it becomes a regular thing.
It is.
And this was like a monthly deal, And
people think that standing on the street corner in the yellow vest is the way to build a career.
Yeah, they're back out here.
I know.
But and in fact, I'll tell you another thing. So it was a Christmas time.
Okay.
So it was Christmas time. So one of the ladies that was helping with this little boy, decide, here's something for this kid, and she buys him a gift. So I bring this gift up there to him and give it to his mother, and she says, "What is this?" I said, "It's a gift from the mother." I can't remember what it was. It was something, and the lady says, "What? Why didn't she get him a Wii?"
Oh, yeah.
And we was like $200 or something, I was thinking that, again, ingratitude, instead of being thankful that somebody thought of him to give him whatever, some $50 gift, she wants a $299 gift.
Yeah.
And it was bad. I mean, that's why I say I don't have the best attitude. And the mom is one of these ladies who, when, this was back during George Bush's, W. Bush's presidency. He came out with welfare reform.
Yep.
And so she had to get a job. She was ticked off. She was just so mad. Well, she figured out that all she had to do was get herself fired, and then she could be back on welfare again.
Yeah.
And so what did she do? Just figured out, and she got herself fired, and she's back on welfare. Then what happened, the one young man that I was dealing with, he, this lady who liked him so much, and she had a son or a couple of kids, she figured out a way to foster him and get the mother. She tricked her actually into signing him over. She did. Well, when the lady found out all of a sudden that she had done that, and she lost one of her welfare kids, she lost her welfare for him. What does she do? She gets pregnant and has another kid to take his place. I mean, so I know the deal about how this works, how these people, the mentality. And there are needy and there are not needy. And for us to all of a sudden have the stereotyping goes two ways. You can stereotype a race as being all lazy and good for nothing. That's the bad side. We're always thinking of somebody, well, you're just stereotyping this race. But you can also stereotype the good in people or the legitimate need of people. When no, not every homeless person, not the majority of the homeless people are helpless, right? So stereotyping goes two ways. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that it goes two ways, and we have to demand responsibility. And without going into a long story, sometimes you need to go back and read the history of the Pilgrims, how when the Pilgrims first got here, they almost starved to death because they had a socialistic system, a common purse where but
sharing is good.
Yeah. Well, they found out when they almost starved, and then afterwards they realized, you don't work, you don't eat, as the Bible says.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, everybody started pitching in, doing the same amount of work and everything. And well, that's the only way they survived.
I really believe that. And you mentioned before the race baiters who have convinced so many, especially black men, that any job in the service industry harkens back to slavery. I've seen so many successful black businessmen in the service industries that when they own it, and whether it's lawn care or being a mechanic or something like that, when you own it, to me, that is the solution to rebuilding North Tulsa, is the black entrepreneur,
right?
Who's not, it's not another, general, Dollar General branch. It's somebody in North Tulsa that owns their own store. Right. And they got to get over this idea that it's demeaning to serve somebody.
Well, yeah, David, there's so many wrong ideas. There was a young man came to me years ago. He had gotten his certificate from OSU Okmulgee, the auto mechanic school.
Yeah.
He was a certified auto mechanic repair certificate, which is hard to get. I mean, you got to go through some training to get that. Okay.
Sure.
And which meant he could have worked at any auto shop.
Oh yeah.
Or dealership in town.
There's such a demand for skilled, trained, certified mechanics.
Exactly. And so, but what does he do? He wants to give back to his community. So he's going to open a service, auto service place. But what's he going to do? Because he wants to give back to the community, and he wants to open it in North Tulsa.
Yeah.
He came to me for insurance because he wanted to get insurance through a black agent. So he wants to do everything black. Okay. And he lasted a year and he's out of business because I'd go by there and his guys are just sitting around. No business, because the people in North Tulsa would go south to get their cars serviced, and rather than go to him, because they in their minds, well, he can't be any good. And so, but see, this is the mentality. Jews, the way the Jewish community made their money, they went where the money was to be made. So what he should have done is, if he wanted to really help his community, what all of these black entrepreneurs should do to make their money and help their community is go to South Tulsa, West Tulsa, East Tulsa, whatever, set up shop, make their money, then bring it back to North Tulsa and spend it there.
Yeah.
So this is what the Jewish community does. The Jewish community will go out and set up their stores. Or if El Paso, what was his name? Corporate commissioner, one of the corporate commissioners. I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, he was on it forever.
Anthony.
Yeah,
Bob Anthony.
Bob Anthony. Okay. If you ever go to Texas or on the Mexican border, you see Anthony stores.
They're still there, huh?
I think they are. I'm pretty sure. But you had Anthony stores.
Oh, they were everywhere here in the 80s.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you go on the border, but the Mexicans, Anthony's.
Yeah, Walmart ran them out here.
Oh, yeah. So, but anyway, it may have run them out down there. I don't know. But they were there, 20 years ago, 15, when my parents were down there. My mom was going to Anthony's.
Sure.
But that's how they made their money. And they would go in New York City. They would set up shop when I lived in the hood back in Philadelphia in the ghettos. They would have these corner shops, and they were all Jewish run. Yeah, they didn't live there.
One of the most successful mercantile families in Tulsa history is the Renbergs, Jews.
I remember.
Yep. And high quality. And that's the thing. The North Tulsa folk wanted to go shop at Renberg's. So when the 70s and integration came in, the black ladies wanted to shop at Renberg's, don't you know?
But see, this in Philadelphia, the Jews had their shops were in the ghetto.
Yeah.
And I remember I had the first edition of Spider-Man, of Daredevil. I had.
But you know what?
Dave, can I finish, please? Sorry. Thank you. I had the first issue of these comic books, and I would get them at the Jewish. It was called the Corner Store.
Yep.
You could. They were like the 7-Elevens.
Oh, of course.
But they were in. You walk to and it was every like 3 corners. Yes. People didn't have cars or anything, but so you would walk to them. And that's how they made their money. But they didn't live there. They went back to their ghettos, the Jewish ghetto. You had the black ghetto, the Jewish, the Polish, the Irish. Yeah. And so, but that's how the business is done. The black community never got that message. The black community thought that the way to do it is you set up in your own area. And it didn't work. And that's how they never. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I just, thinking about what happened here with Tulsa, I think it was crime that's preventing the shops in North Tulsa. There's a lot of old abandoned shopping centers. You go up 36th Street North between Lewis and Peoria. Huge shopping center, all boarded up. There's several of them around. Pine and Lewis, another one.
That's a later development.
Yeah.
But even before then, I have a friend, he's passed away now, but his family owned the drugstore in North Tulsa.
Right.
And what happened when integration came along, everybody wanted to go to Walgreens back then. And what was the Montgomery Wards? They had the drugstore. And they all wanted to go to South Tulsa. There was an old saying, the white man's water is sweeter.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
But you just had to, you want to sit at the lunch counter at Woolworth's. You wanted to, and because it just felt better.
Okay. Arrived.
Yeah. And so his family business went out of business in North Tulsa. They had a drugstore. They had the same drugs, when I started with Farmers Insurance. There was a black farmer's agent. He was a fraternity brother of mine, black fraternity. His fraternity brothers from Tulsa wouldn't buy their insurance from him because they would go to another farmer's agent because for some reason the same farmer's insurance was better from a white agent. That's what I'm saying. I mean, this is how messed up the black mind is.
My point is the crime problem became greater when they didn't identify with the owner of that store that they're stealing from another black family. Now it's, a Family Dollar or, some national chain. It's okay to steal a ham from Safeway.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, you may think that no, the theft was.
Okay. Case in point.
Okay.
Pine and Peoria.
Okay.
How many tax dollars have we spent trying to sweeten the deal to get some grocery store up there.
Right.
And none of them have been from the people who live there. It's always been an outside firm. And when the money subsidy dried up, they shut up and said, we can't staff it. We can't. The pilfering is what's really killing us.
Right. But there's one supermarket that seems to make it.
Yeah, the Mexican one.
No. That one didn't make it.
Did that close to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's the one. What's the one over on Peoria? The one that.
Well, there used to be Warehouse Market.
Yeah, where are they gone from those?
They've sold out the one by Peoria and 61st. It's now Cox Cash Saver.
Oh, okay.
I don't like it.
Okay. Well, Warehouse Market made it up there for years after nothing else would. Okay.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of, what are those dollar stores? And they're complaining about the dollar stores.
Well, Family Dollar got run out. Dollar General, according to one of my sources, the gang was paid protection money for Dollar General.
Well, yeah.
Family Dollar wouldn't pay the protection.
Well,
money.
what's her name? Well, what's her name? Wants her out of. What's them out of there? The city councilor.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Warehouse Market is a Tulsa. It's part of Tulsa history.
Right. Yeah, and somehow they were able to make it in North Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
So there was something in the way they ran things or watched things or did things, that worked.
Yeah.
So it can work. And as far as, robbing your own people, it's just the times. That's why the Mexican market didn't make it, because they were getting robbed blind. In fact,
because those aren't our people.
Yeah. See, now it's not our people. If it's our people, they're robbing their own people. I mean,
that's true.
We're indiscriminate when it comes to we're equal opportunity robbers or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're taking you through, man. We're dragging these our through a lot.
But this is part of it, and I think Lori Decker-Wright needs to understand these narratives.
Well,
because it's community government.
I think our mayor needs to understand it. Oh no, here's the thing. I think our mayor does understand it. The problem is our mayor is a politician.
Yeah, who brought him there?
And the people who are around him, the rest of the politicians from North Tulsa, know this stuff. They don't want to face it because they're politicians. And I won't mention names, but there are some pretty... I don't have a lot of compassion or pity for some of these people because they know what they're doing. They know where the real problems lie. I think they know how they could fix it. And don't even get me started on the preachers. Well,
yeah, but Eddie, you have just demonstrated in this last, half hour, 40 minutes, why I really wish you had won that city council seat. Because your heart is in community making sense.
Oh, it would have been the Wild Wild West. It would have been some made for TV stuff. Sure. Yeah, because I don't have patience with it. I told people I'm too old to care what you think of me.
Yeah, you're like my mother.
Yeah,
I'm going to speak my mind.
Well, yeah, I don't care.
I'm retired. I can speak my mind.
I don't need you to like me. I'm married. I have 4 grown kids. I have grandkids that love me. I don't, my God loves me and I love him. What more do you need?
Sure.
I'm on a countdown clock. I've got under 30 years on this earth. So I've lived most of my life. So I really don't care. And I just care about what I see around me. Yeah. And there's so much crap going on and people doing things to others in this city that just drives me nuts and that they don't see it. Yeah. That they don't see it. That's why you read the stuff on Facebook, you read it all the time, and me arguing. A lot of people must think this is the most cantankerous man they've ever seen. Yeah. It's just, I don't have patience. I don't have patience for this stupidity I see, and now sometimes like like for those of you that are newer to our audience, I'll go back over how Dave and I met.
Mhm.
Dave and I met on the same side of the fence, but sometimes I like to just tweak and mess with people.
He does.
And I would just tease him. Yeah, for sport. Yeah, I was teasing him, but I think he figured it out after a while. And so that's how we became friends. There's certain people who finally can work their way through it and realize, okay, I see where this guy's headed. And I do it for other people to read our banter.
Yeah.
To be able to see the real argument, what the real argument is, and learn from it. But there's other people that I just don't have. I'm sorry, I don't have patience or time for because it's so stupid. Some of the arguments that I see on there, and which I think we'll move into it right now. Elon Musk. I'm going to just move right into the next issue.
Hey, can I just say something real quick? Because I'm on the camera. I'm not a wino. I'm not drunk. This red face is windburn.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking at it. God, I look beat red, except where my sunglasses were. It's white.
You don't have a Bill Clinton, W.C. Fields nose.
No.
See,
my grandpa had rosacea.
The nose is what usually gives you away.
The rosacea too is something that people associate. Right. That's a W.C. Fields.
The veins that pop out.
Oh yeah. But anyway, I've been building this like $2 million house. It's a barnuminium with my nephews in town. His construction company got hired to do it. So I got chance to work with my nephew who's from Minnesota.
He's building it for me, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's out Wagner County and it is going to be, it's a huge barn finished off. I mean, elaborately.
A barn-dominium.
And
it's a new term, barn-dominium.
Yeah. And the inspector came to check the foundation and the anchors and everything before they start putting the walls up. Cause this is what's called SIP construction. It's like sealed insulation panels. And you put it together like a jigsaw. You get these huge panels they construct. Anyway.
Wait. So even though it's just panels, it's still $2 million.
Oh, yeah. This is more expensive, but you get it up in a hurry. And get this, it's 8-inch wall core. That's without the siding, the wrap, the sheetrock, and everything. It's 8 inches just for the part we put up.
And what is that made of?
You ever see a type of, I'll call it a 4x8 sheet of plywood, but they call it chipboard. At the building store, they call it OSB. It's the strongest. It's stronger than plywood. So you've got an OSB sheet on one side and then styrene foam solid. Almost 8 inches, and then OSB on the other side. And then you got a spine, 2x8, where two of them connect together into that, and it's fastened there. So it's super airtight. I mean, a house that has nearly 10-inch walls, solid core styrene foam, you can't get better insulation. I mean, it is energy efficient through the roof. But the inspector was there, for the county. He's looking and he says, I've never inspected this kind of construction. So he goes to my nephew. He says, is this how you always do it? Yeah. Is this how you're supposed to do it? Yeah. He approved it. He was literally being taught by the contractor.
Is this how you're supposed to do it?
Or something like that. I'm oversimplifying, but it came down to that.
Yeah.
And really, he does have a solid deal there. But yeah, so if you're out on 305th, past, into Wagner County.
West Avenue.
Yeah, at south of 71st. You'll see it going up over the next month. And
I assume it's quiet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't hear the tractor outside.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah,
it's going to be amazing. But right now, this winds. This is not sunburn. This is wind.
Yeah, well, is it tornado proof?
I think this one's rated for 130 miles, something like that.
Well, I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, an F5 might give it some problems.
Yeah, we don't get many F5s.
Right. So, but yeah.
Well, that's good.
And it was designed and planned to be a retirement home for a family that did well. and great folks. So anyway.
All right. So getting to Elon Musk.
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Musk, we must. Yeah. First thing I want to say, congratulations to Mr. Musk for bringing home our astronauts after 9 months.
Well, you thought so, but Babylon B said that federal judge ordered them put back.
That's funny.
I got my Babylon B in for today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So here's the deal. This is what's so funny and so crazy that people don't. Again, one of these things with these people on the other side. Let's just say that. But the astronauts were originally supposed to have come back last spring.
Yeah, it was 8 days. They're supposed to be there.
Right. But they originally were sending a Boeing rocket up to get them.
It's still up there.
And it malfunctioned. So they couldn't.
They had to leave it there.
They had to leave. They couldn't bring them back because it wouldn't seal.
It'd burn up.
Yeah. And so rather than kill our astronauts, they decided not to bring them. Now, Elon's rocket was ready the entire time. But our former president, and to Joe's credit, let's just give him a credit and a pass, I'd say.
Okay.
He probably didn't even know about this.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's a legitimate narrative.
Yeah. Whoever was responsible decided not to let Elon send his crew up there to get them because they did not want Elon to get credit for this because Elon was a Trump supporter.
Can I clarify the narrative on that? Elon was thought to be. Now, he was already the hero for liberty when he bought Twitter, but he did not endorse Trump until the day Trump got shot.
Well, yes, but he was a Trump sympathizer.
You could tell that's where he was, but he didn't come out of the closet until after the shots.
Right.
In Butler.
Right.
And then he came on everything.
I knew it. I mean,
I did. Yeah.
And Trump, Trump's at his, I don't know if you remember seeing him when he shot one of the shots into the moon. Actually, not the moon, the first launch out to the space station and out in Van Horn. It's in Van Horn, just east of El Paso. Anyway, Trump was there. Trump was there with him. Mm-hmm. And they were playing it coy. They weren't standing next to each other, but they showed Trump every now and then in the room with them and this stuff. So they've been kind of chummy for a while, but they kept it low level. It wasn't a real open thing. And I think the Bidens knew it. They knew that he was, behind the scenes, that they were chummy. And, but anyway, for whatever reason, Biden would not send a SpaceX rocket to go get these guys.
Yep.
When we know SpaceX in the 4 years prior to Biden's administration, SpaceX had sent several rockets up there. And the other thing might have been too, just that if the SpaceX rocket had gone up and been successful bringing it right back, it might have made him look bad for sending the Boeing rocket earlier. So I don't know, whatever reason they didn't do it, but SpaceX went up and boom. In fact, I think they did it a little earlier than they expected. It's really funny because just 2 weeks earlier, there was a test rocket that they shot up and it burned up. Did you see the one that failed? They had a test rocket.
Yeah.
And the news it was like, Elon Musk, the SpaceX rocket. But that was actually a test for a different.
Of course, sure.
Right. But the media didn't report
No,
that.
You're not hearing the full story.
Yeah.
You're not even hearing a fraction of the story.
They were trying to say, he can't do it. They were excited.
Right.
To think that Elon
Yeah, they want him to fail.
They want him to fail. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, boom, up.
Well, Elon's got so many things going up. For one thing, you know that for the last year or two, he's been setting up rockets every about 3 days because he's building his Starlink internet. Mm-hmm. And, making it better and better and better. And we're not seeing those rockets because that's just, okay, whatever. But preparing for his his mission to Mars, he said this. He was talking to Joe Rogan about it. He says, when we can get to 100% reusability, he says, the cost of space travel will drop massively. And he says, I think he said something like a year and a half away from that. But each component he does, he sends up a rocket and tests that. And once that stage of launch is met, he's just going to let it crash and burn. It's not on a mission.
Right.
It's on a test.
Right.
And so they will show it being self-destructed and land in the ocean, and they're, can't trust Elon.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm getting to where it costs the taxpayer very, very little.
Right.
Because right now, you remember the argument Larry Norman said, we send people to the moon, but we can't feed the children. Even the Christian artists were saying this is immoral, the kind of money we're spending on these things. And so Elon wants the cost to be so low and the benefits to be so high.
Right. And he understands. See, that's the thing that's so interesting about him, that he not only develops the state of the art of whatever art it is, but he also does it cheaper.
Yeah.
Then he's developed the state of the cost as well,
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. But you're right that it's almost scary what they're able to do. Did I tell you the story about my wife and I were headed out to California one time, and we got out to Barstow. We're about 30 miles from Barstow, and we look and we see this light coming, and then it's getting brighter, and all of a sudden this thing starts opening up, and it opens in this giant thing, and it turns into this really like a giant fish. And we're just freaking out. I'm thinking,
the mothership's come for us.
Well, yeah.
Close encounters about to happen.
As aliens arrived or something.
Yeah.
So we pull off and everywhere. I mean, cars are pulling off the road and everything. We pull into this truck stop, a gas station, and go inside, and everybody, what's going, and the TV is going, and it turns out that it was Elon Musk had fired this was an earlier time, he had fired one of his rockets, and everybody, because it was all the way from, I can't remember where his thing out to Santa Clara or it's further south, but it was something to behold because it covered the entire sky.
Wow.
And it looked like a giant whale.
Wow.
It had an eye and everything in it. But I mean, all the way from, it was probably 100 miles of just this giant,
holy smokes,
fish. Looked like just a giant whale in the sky. And it looked like, a whale or a giant spaceship or something, but that was Elon Musk and his SpaceX.
Yeah. So Elon, clearly his technologies far surpass anybody else. I mean, NASA could not do the things Elon
No,
done.
Apparently not.
And I think Bezos, with his space exploration, I think he came up with a way to get something to land upright, if I remember right. But nobody does what Elon does. And so he's got the best scientists, the best data, it's just really amazing.
It is. And I mean, see, and if he and Elon can get together and put their things together, can you imagine?
You mean Bezos?
Bezos.
Okay.
Yeah. If they can put their heads together.
Yeah. Let's just segue for a second to Bezos. He's really remaking the Washington Post. he is definitely not woke anymore, at least on that venture.
Well, they stabbed him in the back. He's seeing what's out there, what these people are like. They eat their own.
Well, in governments, they're already come after Facebook. So now Facebook's run into Trump and saying, protect me. Bezos paid the same protection money, i.e. donation to the inaugural committee, got the front seat in the rotunda. Those guys, they know that the EU could destroy them.
Right.
And in many ways already is trying to. And they need Trump. It's not that they love Trump. They need Trump.
Right.
So that's a changing dynamic. And I think part of what Bezos is doing is trying to make the Washington Post at least objective enough that Trump can feel like he's getting something better.
Right.
Well,
yeah, at least be fair. I mean, I don't need you to blow your trumpet or blow my horn, but just be fair. Don't every day.
Well, this narrative, and I don't mean to go out for too many rabbit trails, but what Trump did with executive order to say no men in women's sports, high school or college, and he got the NCAA to immediately say, all right, that's what we're doing. Everybody's making a big deal this week that the University of Maine decided to snub their own governor and say, we are going to comply with that principle too. They think that it's this big victory when in reality, if you want to be in the NCAA, you got to follow NCAA rules.
Right.
So wasn't that university already decided to throw off woke? They just knew if we want to play sports, this is how you got to do it.
Columbia decided to play ball and do the same thing.
Yeah.
As well as the whole thing with the Iranians and crack down on these protesters, the Palestinians.
Yeah. So remember about 3 years ago, maybe 4, Kristi Noem vetoed legislation in the South Dakota legislature that would have said, hey, we are not going to do college sports subjecting our athletes to this. She vetoed it, and a lot of us gave her a lot of flack over that. She realized, hey, we're stuck. There's not another player in town for us unless we go NAIA.
Right.
So it's just the NCAA controls more than anything.
Yeah.
And so in the sports league, like Minnesota, the state high school league is still allowing it. They're the ones who really have the control, not the legislature, not each school. Mm-hmm. The school is either, you can compete independently with the homeschoolers and the 4-H and all them, but if you want to be in the high school league for state championships in the high school league, you got to kiss their ring.
Right.
So that's what went on in Maine this week. Is they just complied so they could compete in the college arena.
Yeah, it'll eventually get down to Minnesota too, because what's going to happen, none of those male athletes that win whatever they win will get any college scholarships.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
So
it's a dead end.
Yeah. When they realize that they're not getting any scholarships and the colleges aren't going to get any money for these kids, then the high schools, and what really needs to happen, what would nip it in the bud real quick, is if the girls would just boycott.
Right.
If they all went to private schools, let's say, and then the colleges started recruiting out of the private schools.
Well, that happened in the Mountain West volleyball this year. Is San Jose had guys on the team.
Right.
And South Dakota, well, actually several, I think it was Mountain West Conference teams just said, no, we're forfeiting the game.
Right,
not playing against you guys.
Right.
And really, Gavin Newsom also admitted, and he says, yeah, I know this isn't fair. Mm-hmm. Even though he went as woke as everybody else, he's not backing off of that because everybody knows when you got an athlete essentially doping for 12 years, from the time you're 10 years old to the time you're 22, if you've had testosterone in your system, I mean, Eddie, what happened to baseball player McGuire. What's his first name?
Mark
McGuire. He was taking a testosterone androgel. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to ban him of all of his records because he's getting testosterone.
Right.
It's the same thing, except you're actually getting the real stuff if you're born biologically male.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you get it chopped off, you still got the benefit of the body it created.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, by the way, George Foreman passed away.
Yes, he did. I'm sad. Yeah. He was bigger than life.
Yeah.
Amazing guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and he's a 70s person. And when he was at his height, and really he came back and won a belt later in life.
Yeah.
Not nearly as prominent.
Yeah, but he was a fan favorite. People loved George. You could not like George Foreman. And then he became a gazillionaire selling his George Foreman cookers.
Yeah. And he licensed that. See, he did not make this.
Well, no. Well,
yeah, I know.
Really?
But I'm saying he didn't even own the company. They just licensed his name.
Yeah. Oh, man. I just picture he was in his garage and invented this thing and went door to door.
Right.
Dave, come on.
Well, yeah, I just want to say, because people, when something with the Trump name goes bankrupt, everybody's, Donald Trump did. No.
Right.
The Taj Mahal in Atlantic City was never a Trump operation.
Right.
He licensed his name because of the prestige.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Or was it the Trump encyclopedias or something that he was selling or whatever? All Trump steaks. Remember Trump steaks? Trump, whatever.
He's not a rancher.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. He has his own cattle. He has his own brand of cattle. He genetically modifies them himself in a lab and he has time for all that. But anyway, yeah, George, what he had those, and there was something else he came up with later. I can't remember what it was besides the grill, the George Foreman grill. But George, yeah. And the funny thing, all of his kids were named George.
Yes.
Even the girls.
Yes.
Was it Georgette or Georgiana?
I don't know.
Whatever, but
that was funny because he had a lot of kids.
Oh, he had a lot. I think there were 10 of them, but it was George the First. There was George the Fifth. I think he had 5 boys and whatever the girls were. But then Georgiana, Georgina, Georgette. It's kind of funny. I mean, when you think about it. But anyway, yeah, there'll be a lot of specials on George Foreman, I promise, this weekend. At
the time of the Rumble in the Jungle, the famous one, Muhammad Ali already knew the power of PR. He went down there early and had the whole nation just totally loving him. Yeah. I forget what that little jingle that said, Mumbai Ali. There was something that, because he went around and visited the little villages and every little boy there wanted to become Ali. Nobody wanted to become George Foreman at that time. George Foreman did not have a PR operation at that time.
Right.
And so when Ali won and regained the title, it was like, everybody's celebrating this great achievement. And George, later in life, realized the importance of PR.
Right. Yeah, that was the fight where Ali killed George Foreman.
The rope-a-dope.
Literally killed him.
Yeah, and they accused him of having the ropes loosened because that was the only fight where he really all in was for the lean back in where he couldn't get to your face.
No, I'm talking about he killed him. George Foreman died. You never knew that?
No.
Yeah, George Foreman was actually declared dead, and then something was revived. That was the miracle.
I did not know that.
Oh, you never heard the story? Yeah, George tells it. That's how he was. It's funny. I hate to make fun of it, but yeah, he was laying in the locker room. He had been pronounced dead, basically, and I don't know if an angel came to him or he had gone to heaven or whatever. But anyway, he had this visitation.
Never heard that story.
Then he came back and he jumped up all of a sudden and said, "Praise God, I've been boned again." I know. That's the funny part. That's how I said, "Praise God, I've been boned again."
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a whole story or documentary where he tells the whole story. But
wow, how about that?
But that's how. Yeah, he actually died on in his dressing room there, and he was dead for like several minutes or something, and then all of a sudden he came back to life, and I can't remember whether he went to heaven or met the Lord or whatever, but but he came back to life
in the early 70s. I mean, all he won was the 68 Olympics, or was it earlier?
It was earlier.
60.
It was 60. Yeah. That was a big Olympic.
He was stripped of his title because he wouldn't serve in the.
That was like 68 or 70, one of those two. Yeah.
But
around that time,
one of his first, on the comeback was what went on Madison Square Garden with Frazier. Yeah. And I still can hear Howard Cosell's voice as he does the play-by-play.
Joe Frazier.
Yeah. And remember the weigh-in the day before where he smacked talking, and that became a highlight film for ABC's Wild World of Sports, and all that. But the champion during all that time, they were all kind of getting in line for who was the pecking order for the next shot at Foreman. Because Foreman just had, he had everything. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. And then you had Chuck Norton, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Or Ken Norton.
Ken Norton, yeah.
Ken Norton. Yeah, and there was one white guy in there. He lived a block away from me, Dwayne Bobbick.
Oh, yeah, Dwayne Bobbick.
Dwayne Bobbick was the Great White Hope, the 72 Olympics. He ran into Stevenson from Cuba, that boxer.
Teofilo.
I really think he might have been the world champion if he'd been allowed to do professional boxing. Is that good?
I would love to have seen him and Ali fight.
That was the fight that never happened. Right. And I wish it had.
He could hit, but he didn't have the moves.
You're right.
He never met anybody.
Yeah. But Bobbick had his chance against Ken Norton. And in the second round, Norton got one right into the voice box. He collapsed. You like to think, all this, one shot in the neck. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't think he ever got his voice back completely after that. But Bobbick was done. And, he was solid. He is, and really, he had two brothers in boxing.
Yeah. I don't want to get too far off on that. We're talking about.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I go off.
You like to reminisce. And Yeah, but we lost a great guy. We lost a great person, kind of almost a legend.
Yeah, and really, I don't think boxing has ever, pro boxing, has gotten to a point where it was in the 70s. Those are the golden years of boxing, pro boxing, heavyweight.
Right.
So,
but
and later Howard Cosell totally said, "I won't have anything to do with it," because he thought it was corrupt. He told Sugar Ray Leonard, please. Yeah, I think it was at the 80 Olympics.
We're chasing rabbits again.
Yeah.
Can we bring it back to
sure.
Our
So George Foreman reigned at the time when boxing was at its zenith.
Yeah. Boxing. Yeah. In fact, I don't think it ever, after Ali, I don't think it ever regained where it was.
Mike Tyson was another great one, but when he fought Evander and bit his ear off and totally discredited himself.
But even at that time, the Tyson era, it never regained where it was in the Ali years.
I agree.
That was it. But let's move on. George Foreman, may you rest in glory, not peace, but in glory. Okay. Hey, staying on the Elam theme, or getting back to the Elam theme, the attacks on the dealerships, unless you've been sleeping under a rock somewhere, Tesla dealerships have been being attacked in the last couple of weeks, firebombed and so forth.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, there's a protest planned for today, even here at the Tesla dealership.
When you said tax, I thought, California legislature's levying a tax.
A tax.
Okay, yes.
A tax.
Okay. Yeah, the Molotov cocktails, the spray painting,
The good news is that we have an attorney general that has put the word out that they are throwing the book at these people.
3 arrested yesterday.
Right. Yeah. And they're seeking the maximum 20 years for these people. Mm-hmm. The key is going to be getting judges and jurisdictions to go ahead and be willing to go ahead and throw the book at these people. If you're in California and Washington, D.C., it would never happen. But if you do it in the Midwest, in the South, maybe even certain places elsewhere, you can get some judgments. But that's what's going to be very important, that they do that. And so I don't know I don't know how that works, because I know there were, for example, I'm going to just use this as an example, that the guy leading the Columbia University protests, mm-hmm. He's a
Khalil, I think.
Right. He's a Palestinian citizen, I guess.
I think he's ethnic Palestinian. He came here from Lebanon, though.
Right. And he's been inciting these riots at the Columbia. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we have him and we've arrested him, and where he's being tried is in New Orleans, which is interesting, which is a smart move. Get him out of New York, because in New York, you would have a hard time getting any kind of a jury together to do it justly. So I'm wondering if these fire bombings in California, if you can do the same, because it's a federal crime, what they're doing under federal terror laws. Can you move him? And could you move him to Montana? Well, could you move him to Oklahoma?
Right. The standard is, and it's true of civil courts and criminal, is where the complained action took place is where the trial should be. If you shoot a man in Tulsa, you would take special cases to do a change of venue. And a lot of times the changes of venue are for pretrial publicity and things where you can't get a fair trial. But you're dependent upon, if there's a move of the trial from one place to another, it's actually the judge in the jurisdiction that has to decide if he and his community are not fair. You got to take his word for it.
Okay, but I don't think the judge in New York has agreed to make the move.
Right. Here's the reason why. I don't think we're dealing with a criminal trial here. I think we're dealing with a deportation hearing.
Okay. So there are different rules on immigration law.
And where you take somebody into custody, or where they are when you file a petition to courts, that becomes normally where it's done. The only exception to that is when, let's say, if mom takes her kids and moves from Little Rock to Denver and then files for divorce in Denver, where she just got there yesterday. No, they say the family for the last 6 months has been in Little Rock. Little Rock courts have jurisdiction. That's a civil case. That's family court, divorce. So, and it normally in situations like that, 6 months is a standard between courts, and they do respect each other's jurisdiction. If you know anybody who's gone through a divorce, sometimes that comes up. But dealing with this, I think people are mistaking this for a criminal trial when I think it's a deportation hearing.
Okay. So then back to the Tesla situation. Mm-hmm. So because these would it be a terror incident or criminal vandalism? It would fall under normal U.S. law, and then therefore it would have to be tried in the.
If the vandalism happened in Las Vegas is one of them, then the district attorney in the community of Las Vegas.
Right.
But where I think we really have to go with this is RICO laws. which is organized crime where there is a conspiracy on a broader scale.
So if they can say that this is on a national, in other words, if it's happening in several states, then we can try to say it's a federal.
Yes. If you've got, let's say, a narrative, and I'm not making this accusation, we can say George Soros is funding it.
Right.
Then George Soros can be arrested and held on charges of racketeering. We did it.
But the individuals actually they've arrested 3 people for doing the firebombing.
Yes. So they would be charged for that particular incident.
At that location.
Right.
In that venue.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And many times that's part of the building blocks of building a RICO case. Because if we see that the recruiting, the funding stream, all that goes back to the same source. Now we're going after that source.
Okay.
That's typically because it's interstate. If more than one state's involved, then the federal government, through our interstate commerce clause and stuff, that's when the federal government can step in.
Okay.
Because once you cross state boundaries, that's where federal laws often get involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because it's in California, say, or in Washington State, or in Oregon, where it's often difficult because you're going to have very liberal juries, these people may not be prosecuted.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because under our criminal law, if it's very hard once somebody's declared not guilty, the prosecutor doesn't get to appeal. Now, if they're declared guilty, they can appeal.
Right.
So we have certain protections of rights that, somebody wrongfully, convicted.
Right. Yeah. If they're found guilty, I don't have a problem because we can appeal it all the way up to the Supreme Court, where we feel we can probably get them.
The only time they can is the Jesse Smollett case, that kind of where you see corruption involved in keeping somebody from facing proper justice. Because in that, the district attorney's office was corrupt.
Right.
See, so those are scenarios, but it's a much harder thing to try to vacate an innocent verdict and then prosecute.
Right.
Because remember, we also cannot do what's called double jeopardy.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But the Supreme Court recently made a ruling that causes a lot of concern for double jeopardy because they've allowed a state to convict somebody and then they still face federal charges for the same act and get a second sentence for the same act.
Ooh.
Yeah, I forget what the case was in that, but our friend David Oldham, who studies constitutional rights, said this is very troubling because this does allow for double jeopardy.
Well, yeah, we know David, and he gets.
Well, yeah. For instance, a lot of people. Do you remember the famous Rodney King verdict, where, according to California law, they had to find those 2 cops guilty of intentional murder by the way their statutes are written, and
even though he didn't die.
Attempted murder.
Okay.
Attempted murder. And because of the political backlash and that, George H.W. Bush said, we're going to hold them on federal charges of failure to protect his constitutional rights, which are basically, once you're in custody, the cops are responsible for your protection, much like what happened with George Floyd.
Right.
Is they're arguing, hey, they were supposed to protect his life, including his medical needs. Right. So,
well, see, I kind of have sometimes it is tough, but let's say in the old days, way back before civil rights law and everything, you could be found guilty and convicted of something in Mississippi or Alabama if you're a black person, right? And then the state could come in, or lynching laws. They could come in and or I'm sorry, the other way, they could say lynched, but they find someone innocent in a local jurisdiction, but you're basically violating a federal law.
Yeah.
Then I feel the FBI could come in and say, I'm sorry, but under federal law, that person should be convicted. And we overrule this local jury. We're going to take him and try him under.
That was the Rodney King case, was exactly that.
Right.
But they had to they didn't say attempted murder in the federal thing. It was failure to protect
civil rights
him. Yeah.
Right
while under custody.
Right. All right. Oh yeah. Are you familiar with the USIP? We've heard about the USAID.
Right.
Okay. USIP is the U.S. Institute for Peace.
Never heard of it.
Me either. I don't think hardly anyone has ever heard of it. Well, anyway, a federal judge ruled in favor of the Trump administration on Wednesday after a government-funded nonprofit organization filed lawsuit protecting itself from ongoing destruction.
Yeah,
they're trying to sue the Trump administration from ongoing destruction from the Department of Efficiency, government, DOGE. The U.S. Institute for Peace, USIP. I mean, right there, I'll tell you something right there. The U.S. Institute for Peace, bunch of tree huggers, filed a request for a temporary restraining order on Tuesday, claiming that DOGE had committed literal trespass and takeover by force of the Institute's headquarters on Constitution Avenue. The organization also accused the Anti-Waste Initiative of ongoing destruction of the Institute's physical and electronic property. Defendants have been and are at this minute engaged in conduct that will cause the Institute irreparable harm that will prevent the Institute from performing any of its lawful functions and is likely to utterly destroy its law. Okay.
This was the plaintiff's argument, right?
Yeah, that was the plaintiff. So basically, what this organization is an organization that has gone around the world supposedly bringing peace, but everywhere that it's supposedly bringing peace has ended up in war.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, kind of Arab Spring type situations.
Right.
The Obama years.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been around since the Reagan years.
Okay.
And it was actually formed under the Reagan administration.
Okay.
But now Congress is the ones who actually instituted it. And it's been going on since the early 80s.
Right. And they fund it. So if they zero line it in the next budget, that's a way to end it.
Right. But anyway, it's been uncovered by DOGE, and apparently it was like $1.9 billion that are going to this thing. And but we don't even know where the money or what's going on there because they haven't gotten that far. What happened when they went to go in to check them out, to start investigating it, they were met by these security guards that wouldn't let them in. So they had to call the FBI and the DC police to meet them and with a warrant. And the judge finally ruled, and they had to let them in. And of course, then they're freaking out that they have to let them in because I'm sure they're going to uncover some. If there were no bodies buried there, or there were no problems, sure, come on in. Because what did we discuss earlier before the show? Which is very interesting to me. Which one department has said, DOGE, you're welcome to check us out?
Oh, yeah, the letter carriers.
Yes.
Yeah.
The U.S. Post Office said, hey, help us out. If you can make us more efficient, we're at your disposal.
Yes.
That tells
brilliant move, Post Office.
Brilliant move. Perfect move. I mean, because if you can, what does DOGE actually stand for?
Government efficiency.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
If you can make us more efficient, have at it. Anytime somebody is trying to stop you from making them more efficient, it tells you something is wrong.
Yes. I do want to say this. Last summer, you and I sat down for coffee with Kevin Hearn.
Mm-hmm.
Hearn is already, observed leader in this Congress.
Right.
And he was tapped to put together a few years ago a budget plan to get us to a balanced budget. When he presented it to everybody, the people who picked him said, hey, I've been tasked with that. I think it was Banks said, this is way better than anything I was able to produce. Hearn is that. Hearn then flew to Bedminster to meet up with Trump about it. Yeah. But when I asked him that day, I said, is anything going to come out? He says, right now, I don't know that anybody's interested in fiscal accountability. This was Biden was president when he was saying this. Now, all of a sudden, it's real. Here's my point. Kevin Hearn's in his fourth term. I wonder if Hearn's even heard of this Department of Institute for Peace.
Yeah, I know.
So here's my point, Eddie.
Who's heard of USAID?
Yes, I'm going to set you up and swing for the fences here. When you've got a huge turnover, constant turnover in your legislative branch, the deep state goes unfettered. Mm-hmm. This is what is wrong with term limiting. Agreed?
Why?
Because if our Congress has constantly got a turnover and you got an agency that's hidden in the depths of federal government for all these years, nobody remembers when it was formed.
Well, yeah, that's one side of it.
Okay.
The other side of it is that if you leave people in that formed it, they're not going to want to get rid of it.
That's another dynamic. That's true, because everybody wants, when you and I were working this campaign this summer, mm-hmm. the incumbent, our opponent, was bragging about building this new structure, right? Because they all like to be associated with, putting their footprint or their signature or something on it. When it comes to repaving the streets in your neighborhood, that's not so sexy.
Right.
You don't have a legacy from keeping the neighborhood clean. You get the legacy from building the new edifice to government worship.
By the way, they have begun widening the road outside our neighborhood.
Yes.
Which is her neighborhood.
Yes, it is.
It happens to be. These streets out here in front of my office, our office where we are right now, studio, still just as bad. They're still throwing gravel in
and barrels up all the time, but nothing to show for it.
But some of the barrels are in other districts. But as far precincts and districts, but at least the one is being worked on. So that's good. And I would like to think that my running put a little fire under her.
That too. But Eddie, also down on 91st where people come out of your neighborhood, that's dangerous. A lot of accidents in that little S curve.
Yeah.
So and floodplain issues, you got to have a creek big enough so that it doesn't back up into the home. So there's a lot of good reasons for it. So I'm just saying that to justify, this is not graft or paying off Eddie or her doing it just because she lives there. It's smart. Now, I wish they would.
Oh, no. Yeah, it needs to be done. No, it's
I
good.
wish they would fix
I'm glad.
Peoria between 61st and 71st because we flood all the time.
Well, that's the new counselor. The new
I know.
Republican councilman.
I ran into him at the convention. I haven't heard from you. He said, well, I'll call you this week. You know what? Anthony, I'm still waiting.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. Let's switch to sports real quick.
Yeah.
Which team that has guns up?
Yeah.
Is still representing
That's true.
The Big 12.
The Big 12 has 5 teams, and of course, your alma mater, Texas Tech, still doing well. We're now into people in the second round, and
which would be the Sweet 16.
whoever wins the second round is in
Is
the
it
16.
Oh, it's 16. Okay.
Yeah.
32.
So the SEC had a good year.
Okay. So besides us, so I know Houston is there.
Oh, yeah. They were 1 seed.
Arizona.
Yes. They were a 4 seed, but they did well.
Tech was, I guess, what because we came in third in the conference.
Right, you were 3 seed in the tournament.
Right.
That means in a bracket, there's 4 brackets, each have 16 teams in it, and so right away you guys played the number 14 team.
Right, so we're pretty high. I mean, we're pretty
yes,
high.
a very nice position.
Right, so those were 3 other teams. What other? Oh, Kansas they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. But
who's the 5th?
But you've got Baylor. You got BYU
and you got
Iowa State.
Okay.
Iowa State was the top 4 team.
Yeah, and BYU traditionally has good. They used to always have good teams when they were way back. So maybe BYU has a good basketball team.
Yes. Oh, gee, evidently they've got a freshman coming in next year that they were offering him like $7 million NIL for. Yeah, BYU.
Oh.
So, and his name wasn't Young either.
Is he black?
I don't know.
I want to see. It's always funny to see how many black Mormons you can find.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, so yeah, you have 5 from the Big 12. Kansas, sorry, I don't know if Bill Self's losing it. He used to always be a perennial.
Well, you could say that, but then again, what about North Carolina?
Boy, what a crater. I mean,
well, yeah. So Louisville, North Carolina.
The ACC, really.
Duke. I don't know if Duke is still in it.
Duke is.
Okay.
And I think there's one other, but one of the big upsets is McNeese State beat Clemson.
Kentucky. What about Kentucky?
Well, they're SEC.
Yeah. How about
But yeah, SEC's doing great. Kentucky, they still have, I think, 8 teams from the SEC.
But who's the big
8 or
one,
9.
which is a surprise? The big
Auburn.
Well, Alabama. Auburn lost. Auburn got beat. They got beat by.
They're still in it. They didn't get beat in this tournament.
I think so. I think I just saw it. I think they might have lost last night. I think who beat them was a big surprise, and they really ticked off. There were like fights at the end or something. It was like
Auburn plays Creighton today
really?
At 6:10. Creighton's Big East. That's actually a good game. That's a 1 versus a 9 seed. Creighton's
I saw Auburn lose. I thought Auburn lost. Okay. So.
Yeah. But Duke and Baylor are playing today. Auburn, Creighton.
Duke and Baylor.
Actually, tomorrow, Duke and Baylor. Yeah, that'll be good.
How did Baylor have to play Duke and Tech plays Drake? That's kind of a switch, isn't it? I mean, usually it's Baylor that's got the higher.
Well, Drake wasn't supposed to win their first round. They were 11 seed, but they beat Missouri, a 6 seed SEC team. Okay. Drake is a real deal. They're in Missouri Valley, right? But of course. Indiana State and Larry Bird were Missouri Valley, and they won it all. Yeah, so Illinois, Kentucky will be a good matchup. That's a 6-3, and that's a Big Ten versus, SEC.
He's got his whole bracket here.
But, yeah, McNeese went down to defeat just now against Purdue. That took place already today. So Colorado State's another darling 12 seed. They're up against number 4 seed Maryland in the Big Ten. So, yeah, Houston plays Gonzaga. I'm sure that'll be quite a deal. Gonzaga's only an 8 seed though this year. So, New Mexico beat Marquette. That was just a 7-10. I wouldn't call that an upset, but definitely they weren't the favorite. So they have to play Michigan State, a 2 seed. So Alabama is playing St. Mary's, and of course Auburn playing Creighton. But this is probably the best Alabama's been, as when I say the state, because you got Auburn, you've got Alabama, Birmingham, and which isn't in, but still a good year. And you had Alabama being a 2 seed and Auburn a 1 seed. Man. Oklahoma would love to have those problems, I mean, because Oklahoma, we had OU defeated last night by UConn. That was the only state team. we used to have 3 or 4 teams in.
Oh yeah.
All 4.
ORU.
Yeah. TU. So yeah, something's got to happen here. What's wrong with Oklahoma? We used to be better than this. I think it may be time to make a change at OSU. Yeah, it's a sucky year. It's just bad. Maybe they just can't recruit. I don't know.
It's just too bad.
Yeah, because the team of Eddie Sutton and
it's such a beautiful campus to me. It's I just love going out there.
Don Iba and is that his first name? It was Coach Iba.
Mo Iba.
Hank, I don't know. Anyway.
Hank Iba.
Yeah, but remember the famous 72 Munich Olympics when we got robbed? Iba was the coach of that team. Yeah. He's gone. Eddie Sutton, and what a legacy OSU's had. And now in fact, I was listening this week to Doug Gottlieb's radio show on Fox Sports Radio. He used to be, the point guard for OSU. Jewish guy from L.A. who would always write to Jim Rome what it's like for a Jewish guy living in the plains of Stillwater, Oklahoma. The jokes, it's hilarious. Well, anyway, so that's what's happening in basketball. I think it's a great year, great tournament. It sucks to be from Oklahoma right now.
Sport-wise.
In sports, yeah, basketball. Girls are doing a little bit better.
Yeah.
Oh, and...
it's interesting missing in there? Texas.
Oh, yeah, they got beat first round. They were in, but they got defeated first round. I forget by who, but it was. Isn't
it funny that the only, the 3 Texas teams you have in there are all Big 12 teams?
Oh, you got Texas A&M still in there.
Oh, is it? Well, yeah. Oh, that's true in the SEC. But yeah,
right.
That's right. There is a big SEC team in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who Texas lost to, but that was one of the defeats early on, one of the upsets. Was that the McNeese State? No, they beat Clemson.
I don't know.
But,
hey, Dave. So let's move more locally.
Can I just, while we're on sports?
Okay.
The OU women's softball team is still number 1 and undefeated.
Bro.
And so
that goes without
give them
saying.
their due. Listen, I love having those problems.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So locally, we're over a year and a half away from the gubernatorial.
Yes. You and I both got this mailer.
Right.
From Gentner Drummond. He's already,
Well, he's got the money. He's got the money. The money, though, interestingly, doesn't always pan out. In this state, the money does not, and I guess nationally either, but in this state, the money does not dictate the winner. So we've got him officially announced. Mike Mazie, former state senator Mike Mazie, he's announced. Anybody else who is official that we know of? Do you know?
Charles McCall,
and his background.
He's banker, very wealthy, so he's going to have a lot of money, and he's been serving for almost 10 years as Speaker of the House. He's now termed out.
So there's 3. Anybody else?
Man, I know him.
There was a rumor that the Secretary of Education might throw his hat in there, but
no, don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen either.
And Matt Pinnell terms out a lieutenant governor.
Yeah, he won't.
However, he and I talked privately last year, and I said, man, it kind of sucks for Stitt to be bad-mouthing Trump, trying to get DeSantis bandwagon going, because he could have easily gotten a Kristi Noem style appointment in the Trump administration. I said, well, it sucks for him. And Matt says, for him, what about me? He says, he said, figure it out, Dave. He resigns governor to go to Washington. Who becomes the incumbent going into 2026? Oh, yeah. He says, yeah. But I think Matt has so much opportunity in his field of marketing, which he's very good at. And I think he would do very, very well. I could see him taking appointments to boards of directors and helping steering and manage big, Fortune 500 companies. He's that good, and he's not just in strategy, but his personality.
Yeah, he's just such a nice guy. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know anyone that does not like him.
He has such a good sense of knowing where the heart of the people is, So I asked him to run for state party chair. That didn't go anywhere.
He's been there, done that.
Yes, he's not going back.
He was the last good one.
Yeah. No, I think if we ever needed somebody else as the RNC chair, I think they'd have to give Matt a look, because he was expected to be it when Trump out of nowhere said, I really want Ron McDaniel. They were ready to vote Matt in as next RNC.
Yeah, I don't know. Boy, that was a mistake. That first term of Trump's, he made so many mistakes in the people he chose and supported. Yeah. I think he learned from that. So. But
Mick Cornett was the mayor of Oklahoma City, ran last time. It was an open race and had all the money. He was odds-on favorite. Stitt come out of nowhere to get in the runoff with him. And then defeat him in the runoff. So, Stitt had money too.
Well, not like that though.
Right. But I mean, Gary Richardson threw over $1 million of his own money into the race and got 6th out of 6. So it just, so I don't know. I think you and I are kind of feeling the same way. There's likely to be another player getting this one. I don't know who though. I don't know who. I wonder if somebody would be interested in coming back from our DC delegation to run for governor. But I don't know who that would be either.
Well, I know who it won't be.
Who?
Mark Wayne. Mark Wayne's happy where he is.
He likes what he's doing.
I think I can see him being another Jim Inhofe.
Yeah. It would be interesting. I don't think that Frank Lucas would have the kind of support to do it. And I know Tom Cole's in too high and powerful position to do it. What about Burkeen? Josh Burkeen.
I think Josh is too young still. He's too fresh. Fresh, and he's too area specific right now. So but he's a little Dixie candidate. Yeah, right. It would take him a while. Yeah. He'd have to become a little more known. Yeah. He'd be a great one. I mean, Josh, I love Josh. I mean, I think he would be really good. Our first district, our second district, our first district congressman, our own congressman for Tulsa. Yeah. He's the guy. I would love to see him as governor. Yeah. So not this next election, but the one after that, I predict somebody with the resources and support will take on James Lankford. Lankford's credibility is deeply lost. I think they need to take him on now. I think he doesn't come up again. Oh, I see. No, I know. I thought you meant the next time he runs. Right. No. Right. Next time he runs, I think he's as weak as he is going to get. He is. And more than anything, Trump totally discredited him when he went to his speech to Congress and said, see, you didn't need new legislation on the border. You just need a new president. Right. That destroyed everything that Lankford claims he was trying to fix. Right. It wasn't going to fix anything. No. So, plus Lankford, the things he's been doing here in Tulsa should just disqualify him. I mean, see, what I think he's trying to do in Tulsa, which is kind of silly because he's playing to the city and he's losing everything around the city. Yeah. the whole thing with the North of the Race riot.
Mm, yeah.
Supporting that whole deal and setting up the reconciliation thing, this whole new area that we talked about that, right? That area they're trying to designate for the race massacre. And he won't let it go. He will not. His office called me and tried to soft sell it, and I said, you cannot soft sell this. You don't know what you're doing. The harm you're doing by this. They just I don't know why they can't get it in their heads. They just can't understand it.
On the far right Republican Party in Oklahoma, this last time there was an unknown candidate. He was a chiropractor. Tried to run against it, got nowhere. Before that, Dan Fisher ran and had the only person Dan Fisher beat was Gary Richardson. Neither of them got anything to speak of. But when you're asking who's all going to run, just know there's going to be somebody for the radical right.
Well, yeah, you always have that.
Yeah,
you always have that.
But I don't think it'll be Nathan Dahm. I think he'll sit this one out.
Probably. Most likely.
Maybe.
Most likely.
I may eat those words. And
what do you think he'll do? Do you think he'll run for, or can he run for party chair again?
He's almost like a lobbyist now. So Freedom Works was a big national organization. They're the ones that brought Nigel Farage in a few years ago for a speech to that. Rhonda Villamont Smith, who was our county chair, she works with Freedom Works a lot. She might even be on the board or one of their boards. They started a state version of the Freedom Caucus that we have that, Jim Bridenstine helped form. And Nathan Dahm is the kind of the paid staffer that coordinates the House and Senate Freedom Caucuses in the Oklahoma legislature. The person who really, really has the power in that is a senator named Shane Jett. Shane's a solid guy. But so Nathan's now pulling a salary doing that, which goes to your narrative of, has Nathan Dahm ever had a real job? And really, Bridenstine, he left Congress. What did he do? I'll call him a lobbyist. He calls himself a consultant to the aerospace industry. I think he's raising money, through appropriations or whatever for whatever. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it military industrial complex, but I don't think it's totally, not involved.
Who do they make their product for?
See, I don't know which companies he represents.
Right.
But now, is that a bad thing? Look, Steve Largent left Congress, failed run for governor. That was a close one to Brad Henry. But he then became head of the mobile communications lobby in Washington. When Frank Keating left the governor's desk, he became president of the Bankers Association lobby, made millions. One of his employees was Mike Hunter, who made a lot of money and became our attorney general till we found out he was having affairs and he had to resign, So anyway, but so you got this musical chairs because this is the big, you remember 2010, all these Tea Party candidate movement of the right, we swept all the big House seats. The Oklahoma statewide seats.
Can I borrow your computer?
I don't know why.
I want to.
It's all wired in.
I want to apply for one of these.
Yeah, I know. Well, John Sullivan, who had been a congressman, right. I was at the watch party for when Kevin Hearn first got elected, and John was there. I said, "So tell me what you're doing." He says, I said, "So you're a lobbyist?" Yeah. Making more money. Making more money than he did as a congressman.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing.
I don't know how, because you can make a whole ton of money. My friend, you probably read about the money that my dear friend, Mark Wayne, has earned since he's been a congressman.
Yes, but those are investments, right?
Investments, right?
Yes, and
if you invest wisely,
yes,
you can. Nobody does as well though as Barack Obama.
Right.
He went in with 1 million, and he's worth now 200 million.
Yeah. That's the problem. Now remember
that's some crazy.
Right after Reagan left office, a bunch of businessmen in Tokyo hired him to give a speech, and he got paid $1 million for one speech. Can't blame a guy for taking it. Hey, at least he was taking it from Japan and bringing it back here. Because those were the days Japan was the China we face today. It was Japan we had the big deficit with. But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of money to be made doing that and funding your next run, because that's what Mike Hunter did. So anyway, Lieutenant Governor, I think Cindy Byrd is going to run for Lieutenant Governor, and that's probably not the only one. I think Frank Keating's son, Chip, was looking at that race for Lieutenant Governor. Because at first he was talking about running for governor.
Right. That's the last I heard, that he was running for governor.
And
so the three main horses for governor then are our Attorney General.
Yes, and the former Speaker McCall,
and then Mike Mazie.
Yeah,
and then Lieutenant Governor
Cindy Byrd is one. Rumors about Chip Keating, Frank's son. He's about as bad as, what was that, Andy, what's his name, who ran for Congress, having worked in the Trump administration, is from Durant. Nobody here knew him. Chip Keating is going to have a massive PR campaign, because I'll bet you he has less than 0.1% name recognition. Whereas McCall and especially Gentner, oh my God,
Oh, yeah.
And listen, it's going to be a bloodbath. Oklahoma media outlets are going to make fortunes off of that race, because you got people with almost unlimited money are going to be just going at each other. Now, I will say this, sometimes when a campaign goes negative, like could happen with these guys, because McCall has always been a Fount Holland client. Fount's former partner, Trevor Worthen, has always run Gentner Drummond. So if you have a Gentner guy versus a Fount Holland guy, they both know how to go negative, and they both know how to go after each other's strategy. So it's really a Trevor versus Fount. Trevor I think I heard just recently left his position, chief of staff at the Attorney General's office, to run his next campaign for governor. So these are very, very effective people who aren't just learning on the job. They've got great teams. Gentner, just a lot of us feel like we don't really know his heart and soul. If I could move over to Attorney General's race, we're going to hear in 2 or 3 weeks. Next Saturday, we're going to have John Eccleston, who's majority floor leader, and announce he wants to run for Attorney General. John O'Connor, who was appointed to the spot but then lost to Gentner Drummond, is rumored to be, he told me last year he's looking at running again. I think those are both solid men.
Right.
I feel like personally, I know John Eccles better. I mean, a very personable guy. You will have a blast having him here. You really will. He's just that personal. I don't know. I think those would probably be the only two run for that. There's likely to be a corporation commission seat come up. I think there is in the next one. So, yeah, who knows? Now,
Insurance commissioner.
Well, yeah, there's that. I think the fireworks, though, are going to be in the superintendent of public instruction. Because if Ryan runs for another term, he's going to be a lightning rod. They're going to throw everything at him. Yeah. And
he's promised. I just saw a video on Fox News online that he's promising an increase in education in Oklahoma in this year. He said he's promised it. So
well, Tulsa's already stepping up, but you know what? When you're that low, it's not hard to step up. Trump announced this week, this might be a good segue into, he's closing the Department of Education in Washington.
Putting it back to the states.
Yeah. Now, Ryan Walters has said when he's running, I don't want us to depend on Washington money because historically, the hoops you got to jump through. And it isn't just do you have enough bathrooms and are the doors wide enough? Do you have handrails for handicap? It's social engineering.
Right. So looking at that, but if he closes the department, the DOE, then that means our taxes won't go there anymore.
Well, no, what they're doing is giving the money back. They're still going to hold the money.
Well, see that they shouldn't.
Well, there is no separate tax. Like FICA tax is supposed to go to your retirement, right?
Right.
There is no special tax that's designated just for education. We do have it at the county level. We do have it at state level, that kind of thing. But no, it all goes into the general fund. What's been happening is Congress is saying, Department of Education, here's your money. You decide how to dole it out. Now they're going to use a formula where Congress is going to dole it out. Okay, here are 50 states. Here's each year a cut of the pie. So, or something to that effect. So you're not going to have a big bureaucracy trying to create social engineering programs and holding people's education money hostage for it. Because Ryan Walters said, we ain't playing that game. We'll find a way to fund ourselves, because he's made this argument. I think he did it at this table. He said many times it costs you more to comply with it than the money you get.
Do you have his number?
I'm sure I do. Yeah.
Okay. We need to call him and get him in here.
Yeah. I've tried recently a few times.
Okay. Well,
I'm likely to see him at the state convention.
Yeah, or give me his number, because the state convention is not till May, right?
Yeah, I've reached out to him and to his press secretary in his department. I haven't heard from either.
Yeah, we've got to. I want to get him in here and answer some of these questions. So,
you and a whole lot of other media outlets really want that. Ryan is being very careful. He'll get on with Newsmax and talk about an issue, but political questions about his agenda, his narrative, haven't seen that.
He should get on with me.
Oh, I agree. You two got along great last time.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
So that's what's going on. And the education thing, though, Eddie, Trump is doing in reverse, in many cases, the federal money, that which Ryan Walters condemned, the social engineering. Remember what he said to the governor of Maine. You don't get rid of this transgender stuff in girls' courts, we're going to withhold all of your funding from the federal government, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And well, he's basically doing what Biden's been doing in reverse.
Right. And
the states don't like it when the federal government does it, whether it's from left or right. So block granting it, I think, if we're going, is the simplest transition we can do. We're not going to try to tell you how to run your education, unlike what Biden was trying to do. So
good. All right. Well, listen, I think that does it for today.
Yeah, let's just recap real quick where we are. With Ukraine, Putin, evidently, according to was it Weisskopf, was the negotiator Trump's been sending? I forget it. I think it's Witkoff.
Witkoff, yeah. Witkoff. I was going to say, I think it's
Witkoff recently told Fox News that in talking with Putin, because he's been to Moscow a couple of times, when Putin heard that Trump's, was grazed by a bullet, he said he actually went to the church there in Moscow, to the priest, and asked him to pray with him for Trump's life. Is he telling the truth? I don't know. It begs the question, what was told to Tucker Carlson, I think it was Tucker Carlson a year ago, was ask him, who do you want to win the next election? He said, Biden. Did he really want Biden, or did he think that politically the smart thing to do was say you want Biden so you won't get Biden?
Well, I think he may have said Biden because everybody was saying that he was in the pocket of Trump, or Trump was in his pocket.
Yeah.
So I think that was it. Yeah. I think it's the politically smart thing to do.
I don't think he feels as threatened by Trump as he felt by Biden.
Well, no, I think the thing that Trump has that others don't have is trust. Mm-hmm. That Trump is the guy that if he says something, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
If he threatens you, it's not a threat. Right. It's a promise.
Right.
Okay. If he makes you a good promise that he's going to do something, mm-hmm. he's going to do it.
Right.
So, whereas these other guys, you never know.
Yeah.
And so they'll stab you in the back in a minute, mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if you listen to the Putin narrative and take any stock in it, is that he feels like NATO's been on a slow, aggressive movement to pinch him.
Sure they have.
And if he feels like Trump is going to stop NATO from doing that, even to the point several of us are saying the U.S. should get out of NATO or reform it as a much more scaled down North Atlantic.
Well, yeah. And I don't know if you've seen it, but you've got a whole new realignment where you've got Hungary, Italy,
Romania.
No, Romania is not one, because if the new guy had won, but remember the police arrested
and now they're saying he's not eligible to be on the ballot, trust me, the last chapter of that is not written yet.
Okay, good.
There's going to be a revolt in the streets.
Well, yeah, it's going to be another Ceausescu deal.
Yes,
they'll be hanging.
Right.
Yeah. So they should take stock of that.
So Greece, Italy,
Poland.
Yes.
Poland, Greece, Italy. Yeah. Hungary.
Definitely Hungary.
And then Argentina is in it.
Yes.
Argentina on this.
Maybe Spain. And yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's this whole new alignment of countries with the U.S.
And Nigel Farage gets elected, it'll be England too.
Well, yeah, England too. They need to get rid
of it. And if what's her name, Le Pen wins in France, which is very probable at this point.
That would be, they need to, well, yeah. And Holland, Vitter.
And keep in mind, in Germany, it still remains to be seen if these people can get a coalition government without the hard right.
Yeah.
With the AFP.
Yeah. So if we could, but at least right now we've got that small new
AFP.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we can get that German group, and the Germans, the French, and the British. Yeah,
the big three: England, France, Germany.
Right. If we can get those three,
all three the globalists could lose power.
Right. And if that happens, then and see at that point, with Trump leading the charge, have a summit and then bring Putin over and say, look, you know who really loses then? Sweden and Finland.
Yeah.
Because they just joined this thing where they think that we're going to, go socialist and we're going the other way instead. Mm-hmm. And I said, whoa, what is happening? Maybe the more right wingers in those countries will rule as well, because then everything can settle down some, all of a sudden.
I agree.
Maybe.
But I think that the Eastern European countries, all the way from Finland, Sweden, all the way down to Greece and Italy, maybe not Italy, Romania, Hungary, they need their own treaty.
Yeah.
That's just them, because they're the ones that are truly under the threat.
Right. They're on the border. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're on the border. Right.
Yeah. Which would include the
Yugoslavia. With the old former Yugoslavia.
Yeah. The Warsaw Pact countries.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah. So I think you get that and that'll happen. It just still shocks me the route Nigel Farage has come through. Because I remember the night Brexit won, and it was not even news until they won. Then it was the only news. And they go to a pub to find Nigel Farage has been drinking all night. And he comes out front and he has a totally unrehearsed thing. And this guy ran it. This guy. And now I watch him on the great, I forget the new network, GBN, Great Britain News. He's about as polished of a media guy as there is now. And just fantastic. And now his stature in politics.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's not Trump, but he's doing a lot of the Trump things, you know, and working a lot of the Trump magic. So it's just interesting. But I have to say, he's not far right at all.
Right. No.
He's, you know, he told us, we had a Q&A here in Tulsa when he's here about, you know, are they ever going to get rid of the National Health Service? He says, you guys don't understand. They love it. They can, the English people, they cannot see a day when the government doesn't pay for health care.
Yeah.
He said,
yeah, there's certain ships that have sailed. Even in America, Obamacare, you can't get rid of it.
That's true too. Yeah. And some of it, now I look, as much as I fought against the pre-existing conditions thing, getting rid of that. Thank God. Because you knew as an agent,
well,
the hell you go through.
Well, think about this. Try to take Social Security or Medicare from seniors.
Right.
All the Democrats have to do is put the threat out there.
Oh, I know.
Years, right?
They still try to pull that number. Yeah.
That, you know, that's the problem with those things. Once you put them out, and that's the problem with trying to get Black people, Black Americans, to think free enterprise in America, capitalism, okay, and basically republicanism, because we're trying to get them to think that hard work, investment, et cetera, and all they can think is, what? I've got to get up and actually work, and it's going to reward, because they've been conditioned that we're, first of all, I'm not going to get the job.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how. It's not that there's a fear that I don't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. And there's a fear, am I going to be able to get up every morning? Am I going to be able to get clean enough? Am I going to be able to dress right? It's much easier for me to do this, and this. That's why I think a lot of homeless, a lot of junkies, a lot of this and this, there's a fear of trying, alcoholics, a fear of even trying. Yeah. So why even try? Let me just languish in this.
Yeah. And that's why faith-based ministries have been so much more effective than government programs, because they see the heart of an individual and work on that. So, Yep. Well, should we wrap?
All right. I'd say we almost hit the wrong one. Let's see. What should we finish with today? All right. We'll just wrap it up with that today. Okay. All right, everybody. Hey, join us next week. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, as you always do. We're going to find a special guest for next week. I can't tell you yet who it is, but we will have someone special for you next week. So God bless. Have a great week, and we'll see you then.